Hey, my name is John, and this is going to be a running form analysis over different runners over different distances. These distances are going to include the marathon distance, the 5K and the 10K distance, the middle distance, which is included in the 1500 and the 800, and as well as the sprinting distances, which are 100, 200, and 400. For each individual category of distances, I will have two different runners to compare and to contrast their different running styles over the same distance and point out some efficiencies in their forms as well as some inefficiencies if there are any. Starting at the marathon distance with the greatest marathoner of all time, as you see in the picture, Eliud Kipchoge. He runs with a stride frequency of 186 steps per minute, and because of this quick turnover and running efficiency, he is the first ever individual to break the 2-hour barrier in the marathon. Now, Eliud runs with a midfoot strike, which is very common in professional distance runners and successful distance runners across the whole sport. He's known throughout the sport for his efficiency and his stride. And as you can see by the video, he has little vertical oscillation, which is how much he bounces up on the ground. So he's using most of his force to go forward instead of up and down and bouncing the whole time. This low level of vertical oscillation is going to be very common in marathon runners and long distance runners alike. More common in marathon runners because they are sacrificing the power in their stride for the efficiency of going straight instead of bouncing up and down and getting more power per stride. Moving on to the next marathoner, it's going to be a video of Jim Ryun, who is a very different runner than Eliud Kipchoge, as you can see just looking at the video. One of the first things that stands out is he runs with a stride frequency of 160 steps per minute, opposed to Eliud's 186. Even with this low stride frequency, he still exhibits a midfoot strike, which is known to be the most common in elite distance runners because it doesn't put as much pressure as a forefoot strike on your Achilles and soleus. It still doesn't sacrifice as much efficiency as a heel strike would because of the overstriding impact of each step whenever you extend further than your center of mass. You can see in Jim Ryun, his vertical oscillation is also very low, just like Kipchoge's. He does exhibit somewhat of a rear foot, midfoot strike, but nothing that would classify as a heel strike. So, moving on to the 5K and 10K runners, which is my personal favorite because it's my event specifically. We're going to be starting out with one of the arguably prettiest running form in the game, and his name is Paul Chelimo. He runs with the ideal 180 steps per minute. Researchers have identified this 180 steps per minute to be kind of the golden standard of stride frequency in distance running. And they just kind of took a study and took an average of all the, or a good amount of distance runners who were professional and competing, and came out to be averaged around 180 steps per minute. Paul Chelimo does have a midfoot strike, but one thing you can see different from the two marathoners is he has a lot more power in his form. His stride length is a lot longer, and he's a little more bouncy with his stride, which is ideal for a 5K or a 10K runner who needs to pick up the pace and hold that pace as well as be efficient. They're kind of the middle ground from the marathon to the mid-distance, and have to be efficient, but also have to be powerful with their stride. Moving on to another great 5K, 10K runner is Mo Farah. He runs for Great Britain, and his stride frequency comes out to be 180 steps per minute, just like Chelimo's. He has a beautiful stride as well. You can tell that it's very powerful, and he's got a very long loping stride length. He still has the midfoot strike, but you can see a little bit that he has a tiny bit of a rear foot, midfoot, which is fine because he obviously has the power to back it up. You can also tell watching these 5K, 10K runners comparatively to the marathon runners, they have a higher vertical oscillation, not by too much yet, but you can tell that they have a lot more power per step than the marathoners did, who are more efficient than them. Moving on to the middle distance runners, who are kind of the middle of everything. They have to be efficient as well as very powerful. So We're going to start out with Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who's a young, emerging mid-distance runner in the world. He comes out with a stride frequency of 190 steps per minute, which is pretty quick, but nothing crazy. He still has that long, powerful stride that you could see in the 5K, 10K runners. You can see he has a very powerful stride and still has a midfoot, but does have a slight rear foot. This could be of his young age of 18, where his form is not as refined as, say, his brother who's right behind him, but he still has a very powerful and raw stride for a mid-distance runner. Moving on to the greatest 800-meter runner of all time, David Rudisha, who's a very powerful runner who exhibits a stride frequency of 220 steps per minute. His stride is very compact and efficient. As you can see, he keeps his arms very close to his torso. The difference between him and Ingebrigtsen's stride frequency is going to be attributed to the different events. This is an 800. Jakob Ingebrigtsen was running a 1500, which if Jakob was running the 800, he probably would have to up his stride frequency as well, like Rudisha, up to around 220. But just watching each of these runners, you can see, even compared to the 5K, 10K runners, but especially the marathon runners, just how much more powerful and loping that their strides are. Moving on to our last category, the sprinters, which are the most powerful of them all. We're going to start out with the most famous sprinter of all time, as well as the best 100, 200-meter sprinter of all time, which is Usain Bolt. Displays a stride frequency of 270 steps per minute, which is very fast compared to the other distance runners that I've showcased. He strikes the ground with his forefoot, which increases his efficiency as well as limits his ground contact time, making him quicker on his stride and able to get his feet up and off the ground as quickly as possible. You can see in the slow motion capture that he almost jumps off the ground with each stride, showing just how powerful his stride is. This also displays the high vertical oscillation that sprinters have comparatively to distance runners, because they are way more power oriented, as distance runners have to focus more on efficiency. Moving on to the last runner that's going to be analyzed, his name is Noah Lyles, an American sprinter with a stride frequency of 252 steps per minute. The interesting thing that separates Noah from different sprinters is he doesn't have as much vertical oscillation in his stride as you would expect from a sprinter. He kind of has like a straight-on stride where he doesn't lose much in his efficiency. He's not as powerful as a runner as, say, Usain Bolt, but he definitely has the efficiency down to a science. Like Bolt, he does have a forefoot strike, but his is definitely closer to a midfoot than Usain's overly exaggerated forefoot strike. Lyles definitely focuses more on efficiency and relies more on efficiency for his performance. As you can see, his vertical oscillation is very low for a sprinter, meaning his power is a little sacrificed, but his efficiency is definitely improved because of this. Now, to recap, as the distances got shorter, the runners got more powerful, their vertical oscillation increased, as well as their stride rate. Most runners have more of a forefoot strike the shorter distance they're going. That is because the forefoot strike gives you more power, but sacrifices the efficiency and less stress that you take on your Achilles and soleus because of a forefoot or midfoot strike. Vertical oscillation goes up as the distance goes down. Steps per minute goes up as the distance goes down, as well as power goes up as the distance goes down due to the more forefoot strike comparatively to a more rear foot strike of a slower 5K, 10K, or marathon runner. That is going to conclude my analysis of runners ranging from sprinters all the way up to the marathon distance. The analysis not only breaks down and emphasizes the huge differences in each of their strides and different running forms, but it also shows how there are very similar things in all successful distance runners that can't be overlooked, such as the similar steps per minute for each runner in each distance, as well as the midfoot to forefoot strike with little elite distance runners or sprinters showing a blatant heel strike or deviating too far from the efficiency of a midfoot to forefoot strike. Thanks for watching the presentation. This is the end of my analysis of different running forms staggered over different distances.